When so much of wrong has been done to you and you're still trying to be good to that person, and then the person goes out and takes advantage of that situation, things and just spread so many lies. Majority of men do not stand up to that.
There is this narrative all over society which says that no, stay in the moment, don't think about the future. But a life decision like your job or a life decision like your marriage. You have to have futuristic conversations.
A lot of young men and boys are still living in that ancient idea of how a woman or a girl is, while women have progressed a lot.
I'm cheering you. We all are, and I rarely do this on the show. But you're gonna get a house for everything you're doing. Extremely important episode for all the men out there. We're living in very strange times. Considering the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case that's made worldwide news, I thought it's extremely crucial to bring on a men's rights activist on the show now. Deepika Bhardwaj is someone who had to bear the brunt of a false domestic abuse case on her own family, on her own brother. She used her ordeal, something she had to go through due to no fault of her own or her family, as motivation to fuel her purpose. Today, she's become a men's rights activist who fights for men who are wrongly accused of domestic abuse. Now, while the Me Too movement was very important in the story of worldwide society, it also had a slight negative side. It had a slight dark side. Taking away nothing from the Me Too movement, I felt like society needed a wave like that. But we've also got to keep in mind that because of loose laws and just unfortunate circumstances, men all over the world, just like Johnny Depp, but also in India, also back home, have to go through everything from false rape allegations to false domestic abuse cases to extortion for their money from their ex-partners. We're living in some very strange times considering the nature of social media and considering IPC 498A. This episode is very important for men and women out there. I urge you to listen to it till the end, share it with every man and woman that you know. This one's for the men who are silently suffering and for the young men who are heading into this strange new world that we live in. Taking away nothing from all the traumas that women have to go through in worldwide society, I also feel this side of the story should be spoken about on the internet. Very important episode, and I hope that you gain value from it. Deepika Bhardwaj on the Ranveer Show. Deepika Bhardwaj, this is such an important conversation. I can't think of someone better than yourself to have this with. Firstly, deep appreciation for you being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Deep appreciation for what you're doing for men out there. You hear a lot of men talk about men's rights. It's not every day that you come across a woman who's standing for these things. And especially considering the times that we live in, even what we're seeing in mainstream media with the whole Johnny Depp, Amber Heard situation, these kind of conversations need to be had, and further conversations about men's emotional health need to be had. So firstly, I urge everyone, men, women, to watch this conversation till the end. Secondly, spread it as much as you can. And now we will come to this conversation. Thank you, Deepika, for being here. Really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me on your show, Ranveer.
Maybe let's just start off with a part of the mainstream narrative so that people understand what the situation means. Every male friend group has its own WhatsApp group or Instagram group where, we send memes to each other, we talk to each other, we almost vent also sometimes. And on one of my bro groups, someone sent a meme of Will Smith and Johnny Depp. And the meme said that no matter how successful you become in your career or how rich and famous you become, if your partner is the wrong partner or chooses to do the wrong things, your life will be ruined. What do you have to say about that?
I think in today's times, it is absolutely important. While it is important to have the right partner, but there's no formula to have the right partner, right? And there are a lot of traits that we attach to men for thinking or considering that it's a good man or a right man. we don't really have that many traits that we attach to women, that this is the right woman. The general thinking is all women are right, all women are good. But then now there are just so many men who are suffering in relationships, and they're trying to talk about themselves. And one, I'm not too sure if the world is still ready to listen to men's issues and men's problem. But when cases like a Johnny Depp comes out, then at least the conversation starts, which is good, I think, which is great, I think. It is very painful for men who go through something like that.
Why don't you give some context on the case for listeners who have absolutely no idea what we're talking about?
So Amber Heard went out with a public article calling herself a victim of extreme domestic violence, and she was a champion of women's rights or women's sufferings, sort of to say, during the whole Me Too movement as well. And she had put very serious allegations on Johnny Depp. That's when Johnny Depp said, it's not Amber Heard who is the victim of domestic violence in this relationship, it is me.
And also the context here is Johnny Depp was one of the most legendary movie stars at the time. And in many ways, this kind of ended his career.
There's a friend of mine who runs this platform called Men Stay Out. And she created an image which actually went viral, which said, no matter what's the outcome of this case, I have lost my life. I've lost everything that I had. I have nothing more to lose. Even before the verdict was passed, I was declared guilty. He was thrown out of projects. He has suffered so much. I just hope there is something that becomes better for him here on. But I'm not too sure if whatever was done to him, if there would be similar kind of repercussions now for Amber, that a lot of people now know what was the truth.
I just want to step in here and speak a little bit to Johnny Depp. We'll make this clip reach him. I have a common friend.
Okay.
Johnny, if you're watching this and if you're listening to this, know what you did for a lot of men worldwide as well through your own suffering.
Absolutely.
So there was purpose behind the suffering as well. That's all I want to put out there.
Something that I want to specifically say about this, and this is what the trial ended with, where Amber Heard tells Johnny Depp, Johnny, you're going to tell the world you're a victim of domestic violence? Go tell it. Let's see who believes you and who stands by you. That these are very strong statements. And because Johnny is so famous and he's a star, people are getting to know the realities. But trust me, Ranveer, there are endless men out there who are actually the ones abused in the relationship, but they're told every time, dare you go and say this, and nobody is going to believe you. Because everybody believes that if the man is coming out and saying he's a victim of domestic violence, he must have himself done something wrong, which was the initial reactions in this case also.
Could you highlight some of the things Johnny had to go through?
Well, professional, personal, his kids, his image. Just imagine the good work that he had done over years. Now there are a lot of people who are coming out from the industry and supporting him, that, they had never seen him misbehave. He had been the kindest man and he has done so much of good work. But suddenly the allegations come. There's no evidence with those allegations, but he's thrown out from his professional assignments. Then his entire family is targeted. It's just kind of a witch hunt.
I believe there was also physical violence from Amber Heard. And she cut off his finger or something like
Correct,
that.
absolutely. She has herself, there are audio recordings now that have been played in the court, obviously, where she's saying, I hit you, I did not punch you, I did this, I did that. And it was a long. And Johnny is saying, I did not want to go out, I did not want to call police. But then there's so many things that happen in a relationship. And I think I will never say that it's only a man who tries to protect a relationship. There are a lot of women in domestic violence situation who also make efforts to protect the relationship. But when so much of wrong has been done to you and you're still trying to be good to that person, and then the person goes out and takes advantage of that situation and completely turns around the thing and things and just spreads so many lies. Majority of men do not stand up to that. I am glad Johnny Depp did.
Yeah. And, we hope and pray that he kind of gets his movie career back. Whatever
Oh,
gives him the
yes.
most happiness,
Yes.
let him get it back. Because it'll be
I-
like a worldwide sort of story for a
Right.
lot of men, if you had to notice. I also
Absolutely.
want to place some context here. This is nothing to do with the domestic violence or the injustice that women all over the world face. While we're having this conversation, we're also very aware of that side of the story, which brings me to the documentary you made. What I loved about it was that you made it from a very neutral perspective. You weren't siding with men or women on it. And I recommend everyone go watch that documentary. We'll link it down below. But maybe some context on that documentary is IPC 498A. What is it? Especially from the Indian context, I'd love to hear it from you. In many ways, you've kind of made it a massive part of your life.
Yes.
What is it? What does it mean? What does it mean for Indian men specifically? Because that's our primary audience. Would love to hear it.
So I would love to go a little bit into the background of this, Ranveer, and I've been very vocal about this. Majority of people, whosoever get to know about my work, the biggest question is why? Why would a woman do this? Because it's a fact that women have suffered, women suffer, and there are so many women who go through wrongs at the hands of men, So for a woman to talk for men is quite a, something that people find it hard to accept. Why it started is I was absolutely unaware of this realm, and I was working as a journalist with a company called Exchange for Media, and I personally went through this experience where the marriage in my own family broke down because the woman was at fault. I don't want to delve too deep into this, but we had very, very strong evidences to prove that it was not a case of dowry, it was not a case of domestic violence, it was a case of adultery by the woman. And we had solid evidences in our hands. But when the marriage, when it was decided that there would be a mutual consent divorce, the other side withdrew that, and then they hurled allegations of dowry demand, domestic violence, and choking the woman. I was dumbstruck. I was like, how can somebody lie through their teeth like this? And when I started talking to people, I knew there is issue of dowry, immense issue of dowry demands and domestic violence due to dowry in India. But I did not have any clue about this side of the world, that the laws, misuse of laws and things like that. So when I started talking to people, what came out was very, I would say, distressing. We were told, you'll be accused, there will be FIR filed on you, there'll be a criminal case filed on you. No matter how many evidences you have, you'll have to suffer for 4-5 years, and only then your side will come to a hearing in the court. Until by then, you will be arrested, your entire family would be arrested, old parents would be arrested as well. And the woman has real upper hand in these cases. And I was like, this is not okay. This is just not okay. The laws should be there to protect women, but if they're going to use that as a weapon against the man and his family, that's absolutely wrong. So that's when I decided to make Martyrs of Marriage. Now, what is IPC 498A? The law was brought in the aftermaths of a lot of dowry deaths that happened in the 80s. There was this new law that was brought. It criminalizes demand of dowry or mental or physical cruelty on a married woman by her husband or his relatives. And the cruelty is to the extent which drives a woman to suicide. But what started happening was any dispute, incompatibility, the guy is not earning much, the woman is not able to stay with the relatives or the in-laws, she wants an independent place, she doesn't like staying with the in-laws, or she falls in love with somebody else. Myriad problems, one solution, put a IPC 498A on the husband, and then his trial begins.
I also believe the law is pretty wide in terms of they categorize actual physical violence from the man in the same category as something very soft, like just an argument. It will be looked at in the same way.
Absolutely.
And that's the actual core of this problem.
See, the whole thing is, Ranveer, it doesn't take anything in India to put an allegation, especially in crimes against women, on the FIR. And then the man has charges under the IPC for every allegation that you make. the cases are not investigated at the initial stages. While people say that FIR is just a first information report, but a criminal case and an FIR means a lot. If the person is in a government job, he has immense repercussions. If he's in a private job also, he has immense repercussions. The reason I made Martyrs of Marriage was that when this happened with us, there was a lot of, again, like you said in the beginning, mental health issues that, cropped up in the family. My brother went into depression. My father went into depression. And that was very difficult for me to deal with. I was kind of a strong pillar standing over there, dealing with everything. But it pained me to see us suffer because of something like this. So I have seen in my personal life an attempt to suicide very close because of these issues. What triggered me to get into this space was when something like this happens, abhi bhi India mein divorce is still a taboo. In middle class families, in lower middle class families, किसी का divorce हो रहा है, that means immense social shame. और ऐसा case लग जाना तो मतलब you cannot imagine the kind of trauma that parents go through. And I realized that a lot of people have ended their life because of being implicated in a false case of dowry. And my only intention was I wanted these suicides to stop, while of course bringing awareness on the law misuse. Because सबसे बड़ी चीज़ क्या होती है, when you're into this situation, you feel stuck. Your own family members distance. Again, the stereotype. आदमी ने कुछ गलत किया होगा, नहीं तो ऐसे औरत कोई केस नहीं करेगी. But that's not true.
I just want to add 2 pieces of context here.
Sure.
The first is all forms of suffering should turn into purpose. Yeah. And that's the only way suffering should be looked at. So firstly, one thank you on behalf of every man out there. Though I've thanked you before as well. I need to do it again. You don't know what you're doing for a lot of men. Secondly, in the documentary, there was this one part where you brought on a lawyer called Miss Mrinalini, I believe.
Yeah.
Who said that she's a divorce lawyer, I believe. And she's fought on behalf of men and women. She's an experienced lawyer, and she said that basically what she has noticed is that 498A, especially this section, is often kind of turned against the man.
Yeah.
Again, she didn't quantify, she didn't put how many number of men have to suffer because of this. And this is taking nothing away from the women who rightfully use 498A. But in the current scenario, according to the laws of our country, too many men are suffering because of this situation. So, I hear you and I hear your pain and I feel it as well. I still believe that, and maybe this is breaking away from podcasting with you and just meeting you as a person. Do you look at it from a sense of purpose, that like when you look back at the situation, do you understand what you're doing for Indian men out there now? And, maybe you had to go through that difficult moment of seeing the people closest to you go through what they had to go through, but then ensure that other men and women after you don't have to go through those situations.
It definitely came as a sense of purpose. And since it's a long form, because the situation at home was so distressing, I did this course called Landmark Foundation. No promotion, but it changed my life quite a lot. My parents did that. My brother did that. And in the completion of that program is a community project. So Martyrs of Marriage was born out of that I want to do something for the community. So of course it came from a sense of purpose. It was not about me anymore. It was about other people and saving lives. When I had taken, I was working with Exchange for Media, and my boss, Mr. Anurag Batra, he's quite a known name in the media world. I told sir that just give me 1 year. This is very important. I really want to do this. I want to take a break from the job. I'll finish this documentary and then I'll come back. This is 2012. We are in 2022. Talking about men, working on men's issues is an extremely, and I cannot stress how difficult of a task it is, Ranveer. There are no perks. It's a very, very difficult financial journey. You have to struggle to get even a penny to do the work that you want to do. So I don't think there is anything else but purpose which has driven me this far. Every day people ask me like, men also don't do this much for men. How come you every day? And I tell them that the kind of blessings that I receive, and now a lot more women are also coming and saying, we really want to join your journey because we are seeing so much of men suffering around us. A lot of mothers who bless me, a lot of sisters who say, you showed us the right path. I could save my brother. A lot of men, of course, they understand. So I don't think there is anything else but purpose. And I think the larger purpose is that men have a space where they can open up. They can talk about their vulnerabilities. They can talk about what they are going through without thinking this person is going to judge me. This person is going to see me as a weak man. This person is like, यार क्या आदमी है तू अपनी औरत से सब वो हो रहा है, harass हो रहा है, कुछ कर नहीं सकता, कैसा आदमी है. These are the common things that you would say to a man. So the idea is for men, if they're going through something, to speak up. And secondly, bring about a change in the system where men are not presumed guilty and they're not punished from the word go when a woman complains against them.
Or stronger laws.
Very, very strong laws to punish the misusers, and also laws that could give some relief to the man. Not going too much into the depth, but just yesterday there's a man in Bhopal, just a 22-year-old guy who ended his life, leaving 3 suicide videos saying, kuch कानून तो आदमियों के लिए भी बना दो. He had gotten married just 4 days ago. I don't know what happened in his life. Haven't investigated the case. But this is what he said. These were his last words. And this, of course, is not just the case. I've made this documentary, India's Sons, on false rape case victims. There's a suicide case in that also where Arvind Bharti said that, a man is presumed guilty, a man is born criminal, and the justice system is just so against men. And like I say always, IPC 498A was brought in 1983, very stringent law. People used to get arrested immediately and all of that happened. 30 years down the line, in 2005, Supreme Court called misuse of IPC 498A as legal terrorism, And then in 2014, some guidelines were brought in to prevent immediate arrests. Then in 2017, again, Supreme Court said that, people are just not stopping misusing this law. So a law brought for a purpose needs to solve that purpose. And if it's being misused, it just loses its purpose. Unfortunately, that is now happening with rape laws. And that's why I made India's Sons. Because rape is such a heinous crime. You cannot afford to make a mockery out of it by having false allegations. And unfortunately, there are just too many.
The capitalist in me has to wake up a little bit at this point and direct listeners and viewers of this podcast to immediately go follow Deepika. That's the least we can do, especially the men out there. Like, I want your at least your social media followings through our medium to go 10x after this podcast.
Thank you so much, Ranveer.
The truth about financing journeys like this is that social media can be used as a weapon. I'm telling you, if we put a link under this as a fundraiser, even that will find a lot of people who will be willing to be a part of your journey, at least financially. Because there's a lot of guys who feel strongly about what you're doing. Often, I know that even after this comes out, there'll be a lot of people who'll not go through the entire podcast, kind of quote us out of context, and there will be kind of like a backlash on it. But these conversations need to be put out there. Even Shrutesh, who's our producer on the show, his best friend actually went through a parallel situation where a middle-class boy, very young, had to pay off someone with 5 lakh rupees, and that girl was cheating on him with someone. She ran away. She eloped with that guy, but this guy was like forced to pay up.
Of course,
so while we talk about 498A as the guy being jailed, etc., it can even be used as a threat to extort people for money.
Oh, absolutely.
That I'll put this on you.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the biggest motivation for false accusations is money.
And in saying all this, and while we've spoken about 498A in detail, for more information, I want people to actually go watch the documentaries.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to link everything down below. But when I look at a problem, maybe it's the engineer in me, I try going actually to the source of the problem. The source of the problem is choosing wrong partners. And the source of that problem is not being emotionally aware as a man and not being able to read situations, read early red flags, read early signs. And that's actually what I'd want to tackle. The only reason I feel like I'm slightly more emotionally aware than my male counterparts is because of this podcast and because of speaking to evolved women like yourself. The deeper you go, first of all, honestly, I feel women's minds are much more complex than male minds, and this I'm saying as a podcaster in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, totally agree with that.
There's many more layers of thought. Guys are like very
Absolutely.
functional.
Yes.
Like in term. And the thing is, even because of the kind of job you do, creating these documentaries, interacting with people who are a part of this whole situation, I'm sure you've learned a lot about men. You've learned a lot about women.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the source of the problem, which is emotional awareness for guys. We've made videos, on our Hindi channel, especially about how to choose the right girl for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And videos like that blow up because we package it like what guys look for in girls. It's very like bubblegum. But the underlying purpose behind those videos was situations like this, that listen, bro, become emotionally aware so that you don't have to go through a bad relationship. Again, 498A and situations like this are a peak version of like a bad relationship, but there are lesser layers. Like I've been with people who weren't the right partners for me. I've had like a tiny amount of like when I was much younger, there was someone who used to like physically hit me as well. So and that time I didn't even know that these kind of situations exist. And a little bit after that, I've been with people who were the wrong partners, who were probably cheating on me throughout, didn't know, got to know later. But these are soft versions of suffering I've been through. But let's talk about emotional awareness. And that's where I feel conversations like this can help men out there to just become slightly more emotionally aware.
रणवीर, मुझे लगता है सबसे बड़ी चीज़ जो और सबसे बड़ा फैक्ट आज के टाइम्स का है वो ये है कि a lot of young men and boys are still living in that ancient idea of how a woman or a girl is, while women have progressed a lot emotionally, financially, in practical aspects. They know what they want. Right? A lot of women are very, very aware of what they want right now, especially from a man, especially from a relationship, right? But men are still, I completely agree with you. They're very practical, very focused, problem, solution, right? Emotional aspects, they think very less. And again, going back to the same point, the idea is all women are good, so they do not even want to see red flags. Like I have dealt with men who had so many red flags after the engagement or just when they met the girl, but they did not. They just believed whatever she said after that to, hide whatever her lies or, whatever truth came out in front of the man. And this man still went ahead and got into the marriage and then, suffered later. So something that I really want to tell all men out there, especially the young boys. See, a lot of men say, has marriage lost its purpose? What is left for men in marriage, especially with such biased laws and such skewed perspectives, particularly legally. And if you unfortunately get caught into the legal system, then there's endless suffering, especially for a man. What I really want to tell all the men out there, there's no formula that you would be protected from such allegations or you will not go through that. There's no formula, let me be very honest. There's no formula for a woman. There's no formula for a man. Aisa koi formula nahi hai where you can tick mark 5-6 things and you ensure that your marriage is going to work or you're not going to get into legal soup. There's no formula. But what's very important, and this is not just for men, this is for women as well. You have evolved as human beings. You have evolved in genders. You have evolved in your roles. You have evolved in what you want from life, your aspirations, goals, and everything. Be very clear about that before marriage, especially men.
Have conversations with your partner.
Very, very focused conversations with your partner. Does she want to live with your parents after the marriage? Yes, no. Do you want her to live with your parents after the marriage? Yes, no. Are you okay if she's going to leave her job to take care of the kid for 1 or 2 years? Yes or no. Do you think she's going to move along with you if you get transferred to another city and, probably take a move in her job even if she's doing really well in her job, yes or no? Does she expect you to move with her where if her job is really great, does she expect you to financially support her parents? That is also happening these days, right? The woman would have expectations that you support my sister's education, you support my brother's education. All of these things are happening, they just don't come out, right? Then there are a lot of families right now where there would be only daughter, and naturally she would have a lot of concern for her parents, right? But then eventually the system is that she has moved in with her husband and his family, but then she would want to take care of them as well. Now there's nothing wrong in that, but then there has to be a balance drawn somewhere. What if that balance goes wrong? So the point I'm trying to make is, whatever the realities of your life are, you as a man and she as a woman, and again repeating, this is not just for men, for women as well, please make it clear before marriage. Because it is so much of suffering. It is so much of suffering to go through all of these legal battles and later fight like enemies and then ruin your life in court, that it's just not worth it. Especially for men, bahut zyada zaruri hai, I would say, because like I said, women have evolved a lot. And it's not just metropolitan cities that I'm talking about, chote shehron mein bhi. They know what they want. And if they don't get what they want, Ranveer, that's where problems happen. So I was just talking to a guy yesterday from Ghaziabad. His wife has filed all kind of cases on him. And he said, ma'am, you have given me a lot of inspiration. I'm fighting back. But, things move so slowly and things like that we were talking. And so what is the problem? And he said, she and her family is just so dominating. They want me to live the life on the rules that they have, defined for me. And I'm not able to do that. She did not want to live with my parents. My parents said, okay, tum aaram se, you both stay together. But still, like, her parents would interfere so much that it started creating so many problems. And then she preferred to then move with her parents and then, live her life rather than be with me. And she has put all of these false cases on me. And you have no answer to them but to say that you fight back. So it's very important for men. See, people can say all of these things, ki sexist hai, ye hai, wo hai, if the man is expecting her to, be with the in-laws, or the man chooses that I'm going to be with my parents. I'm the only son. I want to be with my parents. I want to support them in their old age. And the woman may not be okay with that. She would want to have an independent life. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with this. But you need to have a common understanding on whatever you want from your life when you are together as a couple. It's very important to discuss all of that.
Yeah. You've said some very important things. I want to highlight the fact that it is important, if possible, date people when you're younger.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
This teaches you so much about yourself and what you need from relationships, and everybody's different.
Absolutely.
In saying that, you had something that you just said about the fact that we can't point out exact rules in terms of how do you choose a partner for yourself. You also said one more interesting thing, that men think less about emotional things because men are very functional. They're either thinking about sports, their friends, business, career, cars, music, these kind of things, and everything is very functional. After speaking to a lot of women, I've realized more women on an average think about love, think about relationships, think about marriage, poetry, art, things like that. I feel that when you actually sit alone and go into deep thought or write what you're thinking, you're able to dive into your own brain. And that's what more men need to do. Yep. They need to kind of definitely have those career conversations, even write about those, think about those. That helps. Being your analytical self helps in your career. But apply a little bit of that analysis to your emotional side.
Absolutely.
How are you feeling right now? How is being single making you feel? How's your last breakup making you feel? How do you feel about your parents? How do you feel about your future wife? Have you not met anyone? What do you want from that person? And this will only happen when men begin to talk to the women nearest to them, their moms, their sisters, about topics other than their career or surface level shit. You need to go to 3 layers deep. Absolutely. That's how you become more emotionally aware as a man. And also, I would still nudge you and myself to try listing out certain kind of rules. Like one of them was the fact that you said have detailed conversations. Yeah. People don't have detailed conversations because there is this narrative all over society which says that stay in the moment, don't think about the future. But a life decision like your job or a life decision like your marriage, you have to have futuristic conversations. You have to chalk out your life 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Think about all the possible problems that can be there.
Absolutely.
Ideally on paper for guys, because guys aren't able to think about emotional things in space. So write everything down, discuss it with your partner. And of course, while I'm talking to guys here, this applies to women as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All these rules.
It's very important. Yeah.
But what else? What else would you add to that table in terms of red flags? For me, I feel that when your friends tell you someone's not right for you, that's a very, very sharp and clear-cut indicator. I've seen this with my friends in bad relationships. I've seen it with myself when I had bad relationships. A lot of my friends would tell me, don't be with this person, not right for you. Good person, but just not right for you. And eventually it broke. So your friends have a good gauge of who is right for you and who is not. Family, same. So listen to them. Secondly, I'd like to give you some masculine perspective on love. Okay. The truth is, I feel women in love are nicer creatures in terms of they look for meaning, they look for support, and they're very sure of what they want. They want more ethereal things from their partner. A lot of guys are often after the looks. Like if the girl is pretty, that's more than half the battle won.
Yeah.
And every guy has a subjective definition of what looks good. But if that particular girl crosses a certain threshold of their version or their definition of good looks, usually they're lattu. Now, if the girl wants to build on top of that, the girl basically, I'll tell you one more thing I've noticed is about Indian guys, not so much guys abroad, but a lot of Indian guys want that little TLC from their ladies. I mean, I'm sure even ladies want the same.
Of course,
you
they
want
do.
someone to take care of you.
Yeah, of course.
TLC is tender loving care, like very... like you kind of, a lot of Indian guys I have noticed, at least in my own friend circles, they kind of want a bit of a mom in a relationship, which says a lot about our society, which I don't think is right. I think you should not look for a parent in a relationship.
Of course.
You should look for a relationship in a relationship.
Yeah.
But in most cases, this is what I've seen, that if the girl looks good to a certain degree, and if she's very sweet to the guy and takes care of him initially in the relationship, most guys like fall flat. And then they don't listen to family members, they don't listen to their friends. And often I have noticed that those relationships break. But please correct me if I'm wrong or anything like that. Have you noticed any other patterns?
There are a lot of patterns, Ranveer. But again, since I come a lot from the legal space as well, along with the emotional space, I think each case has its own, unique specifics. We can tie up a lot of researches and a lot of analysis into one thing, but again, repeating, there's no formula as such. But you brought out a very important point. Your friends, your family, they know you in and out. You may be in a zone where you are completely in love, obsessed and everything, can't see through shades and everything. Even if there are visible, red flags, you wouldn't see that. But yes, you should listen to people who know you the best. That's very important. More than that, what I am seeing a lot happening nowadays, Ranveer, is these, like love, care, all of those things are fine. Marriage, a long-term marriage. Now, I'm not married, so people would probably question me, how is she giving gyan on marriage? But then I've seen endless marriages falling apart. So I
think you're an authority on the subject. So
I wouldn't call myself an authority, but then yes, I have endless experience of especially why it didn't work. So that gives you a lot of
context.
Perspective into what could have worked or what could make things work. The most important thing for you when you choose a partner is if you're absolutely comfortable in each other's skin on a daily basis. It's not about the job that they have, the kind of career that they have, and all of those jazzes, but just you being with that person on a daily basis. What I mean by that is your habits, what you do, what your lifestyle, your friend circle. Friend circle is so important. Like, I see so many marriages breaking down right now because the guy has a certain friend circle, the girl completely abhors that. She wants to, control him, not to be with those kind of friends. Or vice versa. The guy also just hating the friend circle that the girl has. Family values, family lifestyle. what are the basic things that you believe in? What is your basic living style? I think all of these are very important. Now, it's very easy to talk about these things, but the practical challenges are most of marriages in India are still arranged marriages. So this is not just for men and women out there. This is also for parents. It is very important in today's time to let your kids have a conversation, get to know each other for quite some time before they actually decide to get married. Because before marriage, you can still sort a lot of things. But after marriage, once, of course, it has happened, then the separation then brings a lot of miseries.
I'm scanning all. I'm actually like short of I don't know what to say right now because this is one of the heaviest topics we've done on the show, and I have more questions for you, of course. But what I love about this particular episode is that we're putting out protection tools out there for both men and women.
एक और चीज मैं जो बोलना चाहूंगी रणवीर वो ये है कि it's a fact, there's no denial, there's so much of suffering that women go through. But what has happened over the last couple of years, in which I feel terribly sad about, we as women are talking about equality, we are empowered, we are this, we are that, we can do everything, we are in no ways we are lesser than men. But when it comes to a situation when you are, opposite a man and then you are in a fight with each other, then this sudden vulnerability, victimhood, that I'm the victim, I'm a woman, and then things go by from there. What I feel very pained about is that the laws that were made to protect women are incentivizing women to use these as tools of extortion or revenge or, weapon or extortion and that kind of thing. And that kind of thing, कि मैं तुझे बर्बाद कर दूंगी, you see what I'll do with you right now. That's something that I have a problem with.
Yeah, I think Sadhguru had something he spoke in one of his seminars. He said he had worked with criminals. He had gone to a jail and met a lot of criminals. And what he figured there is that they weren't bad human beings, but they had made bad decisions.
Yeah.
So somewhere, even with these kind of situations, it's very easy to paint the women as bad human beings.
Yeah.
But maybe they were in a state of mind which made them make a bad decision. And I'm sure that's something you've seen as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. That, when you, for example, there's so many cases that I've seen. In fact, now, strangely, people don't know this, but, I've often put out on social media, there are a lot of women who come to me and they said, my lawyer is advising me this.
Really?
Yeah. Like there was a girl who had reached out to me who was advised to file a rape case on the man she was in relationship for the 10 years. And I told her, do you think that, they broke up, of course, and the man went with another woman. And there was sort of kind of cheating on and stuff like that. But I asked her first thing, do you think you were raped? She said, no, I was not. Organization that is asking her to, book him for a rape case. And I said, do you want that from your life? Do you think that putting that man in jail on a rape charge would heal you? Or do you think that you can work upon yourself, make your life better, and that would heal you much more? And she came back to me. I said, if you want to go file a case, I will not stop you. I'm nobody to judge the suffering that you have gone through or what has happened to you. But please ask yourself, was it a rape? And second thing, whatever case you want to file, please don't lie. Say the exact truth. Today on your show, I'm saying women who go through anything, if they want to take a legal recourse, please do. That's your right. But don't lie. Fight on your merits and fight on your truth, but don't lie. So yes, there are a lot of women who do this who are not bad human beings. There are a lot of circumstances that would have pushed them to do so. There would have been a lot of misguidance that they, could have made them do so. But the thing is, the law is giving them a cushion or a safety net that even when they lie and even when they present the things in not the way they were, they are immune from any repercussion. Like for example, Ranveer, अगर मैं ये बोलूं कि किसी लड़के को किसी ने बेवकूफ बना दिया और उसकी वजह से उसने जाके किसी लड़की को molest कर दिया, would you take my argument? No, right? We expect a certain kind of sanity and rationality from every adult, right? At least from adults, not minors, adults. So I think that kind of an expectation is okay to have from women also.
There's very, very few podcasts that I'm not comfortable doing. And on the schedule, this was one of them.
Okay.
And this happens maybe once in 3 months. And I'm trying to actually increase that frequency because these are the conversations which help me grow as a person. And, these are the conversations which are really useful for the internet. Like I can have a conversation like that with a Bollywood actor.
Of course.
But to have these kind of conversations, it requires research, thought, perspective, all these things.
Yeah.
It was so easy speaking with you, and that says a lot about you. I've noticed so much like tolerance in your head, like that, and tolerance from both your own personal life situation and from your own professional life. Because my professional life is doing this. Rarely do I have a conversation that will make me uncomfortable. Mostly it's relaxed conversations where people vent, etc. But your professional life is you constantly being fed suffering from some way or the other, trauma somewhere or the other, laws breaking somewhere or the other. How you like traversing through life? Like, how are you going through? Has it made you stronger? Do you constantly get stronger? And does tolerance increase with time?
One thing that has helped me understand this entire situation and actually traverse through every situation that come across to me is, maybe it sounds funny, but I do realize that life is messed up, right? We are with so much information, with so much of fast-paced life, I would say. Somewhere probably we don't know what we want from life, and because of that, there are just so many things happening around. In a nutshell, what has helped me the most is there's so much of trauma that comes to me. There's so much of suffering that comes to me. But again, like we were talking before the podcast, Ranveer, the idea is to save lives. And I know it's a very difficult job. I can confidently say on your show today that I've saved so many lives. And today, just yesterday, there's a guy who was almost going to kill himself in Delhi, and me, my friend Amit Lakhani, he's also a activist on men's issues. We did everything possible to get that man out of that situation. He landed up at we didn't have his address. Dwarka is a huge place. I just had a small inkling ki kahan pe wo rehta hai, a nearby area. This man actually went around and roamed around to find his house. And when he landed at his house, he was in complete dark. There was a rope. We saved his life. He was this huge. He had such long beard. At probably 32, he looked like a 52. Today, he's such a smart man, and he's helping others get out of that zone, right? So it's a support group that we are creating, and it's lives we are saving. I have a lot of breakdowns. I cry a lot of times, particularly because I don't know what am I doing with my life. What am I making of my life? I know what I'm doing is immensely important. But there are some times when you tend to question, do you think there'll be a change? Do you think you will actually have a very fruitful result with all the hard work that you're putting in? What's the change that you're looking at? What's the change that's going to come? And will you ever be able to achieve it? And at the cost of what? Because there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a sacrifice of time. There's a sacrifice of your parents' expectations. There's a sacrifice to what your parents thought your life would have been with the kind of person and the talents and the education and everything that you have. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's more about saving lives. And I know I am. So that's something that just keeps me moving every day.
This is something I learned from army folks who've been on the show, military folks. Even if they save one life, it's the highlight of their entire career.
Yeah.
So think about it from that perspective. Yeah. Think about how many army careers you've lived out, through your own job. Taking away nothing from the military.
That brings me to the conversation that I was having with a very senior colonel who I recently had a chance to interact with. He's facing a false rape accusation right now. And I'm not going to name him. I'm not going to take anything, but I know as a matter of fact, I've looked at all the evidences. That's how I investigate a case. And it's an absolutely bogus rape case. Now, when we got talking, he saw Martyrs of Marriage and things like that. We got into a conversation. He told me there are so many men in the army who are going through these matrimonial disputes and false accusations. And these are forces which are at the extreme or the most sensitive areas. It is so distressing that mentally they are in so much of trauma because at home their parents are suffering, there are court dates and things like that, and there is no excuse. You may be the best guy fighting an army for the nation and everything. When you sacrifice your life, oh my God, people, salute you and things like that. But right now, there's so many men in the army who are going through false accusations and there's no recourse for them. There's no, I'm not saying they cannot do wrong. If somebody is in army, that man can never be wrong. Of course, he can be wrong. He can be a criminal also. He can do all sorts of things. But can you listen to his side of the story if he's saying he's innocent? So that brought me, and it's so this person who's very senior folk in BSF, he spoke to me about how so many men are ending their life by suicide, caught in the concerns that I deal with, and it's very sad.
What drives a man's mind specifically to suicide? Because they say that about 3/4 of all suicides worldwide are committed by men. It's something in that range. It's not the exact number. It's something around the 70-75% mark, I believe.
In India, the suicide numbers are really high. 1/3 of the world's suicides by women are from India. 1/4 of world suicide of men are from India. So, in fact, last year there was a national helpline for on mental health issues that was started, and 70% of the men calling on that helpline were men. And the increase in the suicide rate of men has increased drastically over the last few years.
Why, according to you?
I'll be very honest. I'll stick to my area of expertise, Ranveer, and which is the legal issues and the relationship issues and the matrimonial battles that I see people dealing with. Of course, there are a lot of other issues: financial distress, jobs, career, divorces, and a lot of other reasons. Illness. There are myriad reasons. But when it comes to this legal aspect, which I personally deal with, unfortunately, there's no documentation. Like, we know how many women are die by suicide, or how many women are going through matrimonial cruelty, because we have numbers in 498A, we have statistics on Domestic Violence Act, we have statistics on rape, molestation, all of that. The problem is that we do not have any laws for men. Right? The Domestic Violence Act doesn't recognize men as victims. 498 cannot be filed by a man, even if he's physically brutally assaulted, even if he's mentally put to the extreme forms of cruelty, even if he drives himself to suicide, he cannot file there cannot be a 498A on a woman. So statistics is quite a problem. It's particularly in the areas that I deal with, which is my biggest challenge. That when people ask me what's the extent, what's the spectrum, what are the numbers, my biggest challenge is I don't have the numbers, because we don't have the laws. If we had the laws, we could present you some numbers, because in the world they have gender neutral Domestic Violence Act, they have gender neutral rape laws, gender neutral sexual harassment provisions. So they have numbers, and there are considerable number of men, there's considerable percentage of the victims that are male victims, but we don't have that in India. Now, coming back to suicide and why so many men are killing themselves, I think hopelessness, particularly in the area that I deal with. They don't see a way through. Social shame. People saying, isi ki galti hogi, nobody willing to listen. No spaces for them. And also, something that we all know. Men have so much of responsibility of their families, of their kids, of their wives, of their parents. They are loaded so much with responsibility that if they are not able to fulfill those responsibilities, they think themselves as failures. I personally feel that's the biggest reason why so many men are dying by suicide. And more than the numbers or why they are dying, I think there is dire need to focus on men's mental health. There's dire need to tell them that you're not weak if you're talking about your problem. You're not weak, lesser of a man if you're being harassed by a woman and you're not able to deal with it, or harassed by a man, not able to deal with it. Talking about your suffering and pain or even crying for it is not a sign of weakness at all. And you can let yourself be, you can tell your problems to people and don't fear that you will be judged as a man. Yesterday I had tweeted, why do we not take pain and suffering of men as seriously as we take of women? And most of the responses was this, that we fear judgment. We fear that people are going to call us weak. We are not sure if our sharing would actually lead to some solution or probably bring us more problems. And we fear that people are going to distance themselves from us because they see us as somebody who's not able to deal with the problems. And another thing which is very important is women can cry out, can share their pain with their friends, and they have empathy and acceptance. Men, because they fear judgment and they fear that they're going to be called weak, a lot of men take it to alcohol, substance abuse, and so many. And then they, I have personally come across so many men who would think that alcohol is the solution of every problem, and they would just want to forget through that, which is a problem in itself.
100%. I mean, that conversation can go on a long
Yes,
spiral
absolutely.
about alcoholism, all that. But
Yeah.
again, I'll give you the masculine perspective here. This is probably a limited perspective because I'm talking about urban India, which is where I have lived out 99% of my life. We need to teach young boys how to cry, and we need to teach young boys how to vocalize.
Yeah.
I also feel to some degree it's easier to train someone under the age of 25 in these things. And I use the word train.
Lekin Ranveer, see, this is something that, I deal with men talking to me and sharing their problems on a daily basis. Like every day, that is my job. I counsel so many men. I counsel so many family members. It's good that we are telling men, open up. You can cry. You can share your problems. But have we conditioned ourselves to listen to them?
Ourselves as in who?
As in the society. We cannot just tell men that you can open up and you can cry and you can be yourself. Have we conditioned or have we trained ourselves that we are going to not judge them?
Maybe my answer to that is...
I'm not questioning you. What I'm saying, it's a simultaneous process.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's only through content, firstly, according to me, because I feel content drives culture.
Yes.
And by content, I don't mean YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I mean films and
everything.
television, music, of course, podcast. That's all that we can do right now. Because if you really scan a man's day, what is he doing? He's going to work, he's hanging out with his friends, family, and in his private time, he's probably consuming some kind of content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we have more conversations like this, and this is a reason because of which they say that Gen Z, like kids born after 1998, 99, are much more sensitive. They're much more aware of themselves because they've consumed that much more content.
True.
That's all we can hope for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it probably stops there.
Yeah.
I mean, but please correct me.
There is absolutely no doubt. Women need to learn a lot from men and men need to learn a lot from women because both have their own strengths and weaknesses. And if we can take from each other, we can be better people. We can be better human beings. And like you said in the beginning, it helps in your career also. It helps you deal with everything in life. Like if I have taken certain strength or traits from my brother or from my father, and which has helped me in every phase of life, I'm sure my brother has also learned a lot of things from me.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's not brother-sister relationship. This is a man-woman learning from each other kind of a thing. So absolutely agree with you. There are a lot of things that we can learn from each other, and if those traits make you a better human being, then why not? I mean, femininity is not a weakness. I think it's a lot of strength.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a nice end to the podcast as well. I'd love for you to just highlight the strength. I won't say strengths of men and women, considering all the genders. I'm going to call it feminine strengths and masculine strengths. What do you think are some feminine strengths that men can learn from and masculine strengths that women can learn from your own experience?
I think one of the biggest things that I have perhaps learned from men is to get to the solution and not cry over the problem. And something that I think men can learn greatly from women is to let it go or to empathize and to just be there. Like बहुत सारी problems हमारी life में सिर्फ इस वजह से solve हो जाती हैं कि there's somebody to listen to us, you know, and we can let ourselves out. So a lot of women actually go through, as a woman, I can tell you, a lot of problems. We solve a lot of problems by just sharing, like just woman to woman talk, you know, just let it go and be at ease. Don't think who's going to judge us and things like that. And be vulnerable. I think men could learn that and deal with a lot of things that they go through that ways.
I love what you said about letting it go.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm also trying to learn in life. And I think it comes from a place of a strong masculine identity and masculine ego. That they say that any motivation to do anything in life comes from only two places: fear and or love.
Yeah.
So, and ideally, as much as possible, you should be drawing your motivation from a place of love. That's difficult when you've had a broken marriage, a broken relationship, broken family life. So most men feed into getting their motivation from fear of what will society think if I don't do it, fear of failing, fear of rejection, all these things. And they use those as kind of tools to forward their careers, forward their journeys.
Correct.
But why can't you switch that to love for your family, for your friends, for society, for your teams?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the narrative. In saying that, I mean, this is just gyan. Even I am learning to let go of things. And what you said about letting it go, it's on so many levels. It's about letting go of your own emotions, of your own lies that you're telling yourself, your own narratives you're telling yourself. And letting go of just the situation in itself. Stop taking it on your ego.
Absolutely.
A very close friend of mine, Zarwan Bancha. He's a nice Parsi boy. And what I learned from him was once I dated someone and she broke up with me. And till that point in my love life, no one had ever broken up with me. It was always... And it really hurt my teenage ego or my early 20s ego. And he made me sit down and he told me that stop like letting it hit your ego and take rejection like a man.
Yeah.
And that was such a turning point for me.
I think we define too many things in the sense of take it as a man, take it as a man, take it as a man. इतना ज़्यादा हम लोग condition करते हैं आदमियों को कि take it as a man, take it as a man कि there is no other way that they think there is to a situation, you know.
It's a key. It's a key to getting to a guy's head. When you say take it as a man, the guy wakes up like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take it as a man.
Absolutely.
That's probably what worked for him. He was trying to tell me that learn how to accept rejection in life. And I was like, yeah, whatever. The moment he said take it like a man, I was like, okay.
Abhi samajh mein aa gaya. No, but something that you said, I was thinking about this in my head. It's been going on, Ranveer. That this podcast has been, difficult or, kind of one of the, not like the other podcasts, which have been easy, let's put it that way. But the whole purpose, I don't know how the reaction to your podcast be. I'm very, very, you started the show, having a lot of gratitude for me coming on your show, but let me sort of move towards the end, having immense gratitude to you for inviting me on your show, because in my world, I think I'm the most misunderstood person out there as a public persona, because people think I am anti-woman and I am against women's rights or something like that. Now, people who project me as that, of course, have their own agendas and it doesn't bother me anymore. But one thing that I want to convey through you to a very large audience that you have is the only thing that I am perhaps looking at is equality in its real sense, where we do not have rights and wrongs on the basis of a gender.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, if you're talking about equal rights, we got to talk about equal responsibilities as well. And if you're going to make men responsible for the coming generations, for them to be very nice and kind and not wrong women, we equally need to talk about women not doing the same to men as well. And I don't think there is anything wrong in that. Like, for somebody to think that talking about men's issues is not required right now, or we do not really need to talk about men suffering at the hands of women because women have suffered for so long. What is the number of men who suffer? My question to people is only this. Okay, I will not talk about it right now. I'll stop right away. You tell me, which is that year? What is that number of men ending their lives, or men completely getting destroyed because of false accusations, or men completely being ruined because of the issues that I have raised up? Till what point, till what number do we see that you would be okay with me talking about it, right? Just tell me that. When would that point come? And hasn't that point come already? Because every day we see these things around us. It doesn't make it to the popular media. That, in fact, a lot of times I tell people that with Sarjeet Singh case, or the Rohtak sisters case, or the Lucknow girl case, these were cases which came as a woman suffering. But then the truth came out as the other side. Thankfully, these cases happened. At least people became aware of how things can be twisted and things can be other way around. The reason is, when a man goes through extreme wrongs, the popular media doesn't usually pick it up. So there is nothing in the work that I do which is anti-women, or I'm against women's rights or something like that. Prior to 2012, I was a woman. I'm from Haryana. I would travel in buses, Haryana roadway buses, and if there's a man that I see, misbehaving with a woman, I would stand up and confront him, because I could see that the woman is not able to do so. So it's not about man versus woman for sure in my head. I think it's all about justice. And I'm very clear in my head that whatever is happening in India right now, especially with the laws dealing with women, there's immense misuse, which is actually not just wrong for men. Of course, it's causing immense harm to a lot of men, but it's also causing immense harm to women who actually go through things like this. And I don't think there's anything wrong in talking about that.
I don't accept your thank you, firstly. This is the least we can do. I mean, when we get to do this with people like yourself, it's our version of being a part of your journey in some form, because our job is to create content and put it out, and there's a limited level of impact we can create beyond money. Sure, we can work with, social causes, donate money, but when we do this is as meaningful as the money for me. So that's why I don't accept your thank you. Instead, I'm cheering you. We all are, and I rarely do this on the show, but you're gonna get a house for everything you're doing.
So sweet of you, Ranveer.
And just everything you've had to go through. Know that, again, suffering always happens for you to get nudged towards purpose. So what you're doing, it's not just the guys. There's a lot of women out there. There's a lot of older folks who are cheering for you. You're a spider woman in many ways.
Wow. Thank you so
and
much.
I would urge every listener and viewer to share this episode as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Ranveer. I love the way you inspire the young generation, Ranveer. There's so much meaning in your work. I wish we had all these things during our 20s. We would have so many options to look at. We would have so many inspirations to look at. Although something very, very important that I want to convey through your show before we end is, to all the men out there and to all the families who go through this legal turmoil of being falsely accused, being punished for a crime that they did not do, please do not think, please not for once think that this is the end of life. There are so many people who have fought this, who have come over this, and it's absolutely not the end of life, is what I want to say. Never think of ending life. That doesn't solve any purpose. It may sound scary, but I've handled cases where the guy actually ended his life, and even after that, the woman's side leveled allegations and filed cases, and his family had to suffer more in fighting the cases without him. They've lost their son, they've lost their brother, and even after that, they have to fight. So suicide is just not the solution. And my message to everyone out there, if you know anybody going through this, there are men's organizations now. There are men's helpline right now. There's Sahodar Trust. There's Save Indian Family. They have their helpline numbers which you can find on the internet. You can reach out to them, call them, share what you're going through, learn from other people who are fighting, and give it a fight.
Yeah. Deepika, thank you.
Thank you
That's
so
all I
much.
have to say. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show. So that was the episode for today. As you guys witnessed over the course of listening to this episode, very few people get a hug in the middle of the podcast. And it's primarily because when you podcast, you do feel an energy exchange with the other person. The kind of shit that's thrown Deepika's way is it's just very unfair considering everything that she's been through, everything her family's been through, everything she stands for today. She's trying to do something good in the world. Keep in mind, this episode, its messages, its vibe should take nothing away from the difficulties that women face in society. We were just trying to highlight some other dark realities of society today, especially from a man's perspective. I urge you once again to share this with as many boys and men and women and girls that you can. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for showing your support for the Ranveer Show. All of Deepika's handles as well as links to her documentary will be placed down below in the description box. Thank you.